Welcome back to the Talk Shop in Studio 255. I'm Eric Henderson with Brett Glass and today's City of Laramie City Council Agenda Preview. Good morning, Jed.
Yeah.
Brett.
Good morning, Eric. This is your preview of the activities of Laramie City Council for the week of September 29th, 2025. Well, this week we have something that we don't have every month. We have a fifth Tuesday in the month, and City Council normally has a schedule where they alternate between having meetings one week and then work sessions the next. So what do you do when you have an extra Tuesday? Well, what City Council has opted to do, and this is a very good thing, is to have a town hall. And so that's what they're going to be doing this time. They will be having a fifth Tuesday town hall. This one is going to be at the Rec Center at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And citizens will be able to come and bring their torches and their pitchforks. No, I'm only kidding. Hopefully they won't bring torches and pitchforks, but they'll have a chance to give City Council an earful on issues that they think are important, and hopefully there'll be a good discussion. There was a fifth Tuesday a couple of months ago, and all of the city council members were there. This is a new thing. They're no longer doing it by ward. They're now having all of the city council members at these meetings. And that's a good thing because city council members, all of them vote on everything. And also, it hasn't proven, even though the city council members are elected by ward, they haven't proven to really represent neighborhoods that much. So it's a good thing that they'll all be there. Another nice thing about having them all there is that it's an official meeting, and so they get paid for their time, which is good because we want to incent our city council members to come and participate. So there's going to be a meeting at the Rec Center, also on Zoom, also on YouTube, and you'll be able to attend in any one of those ways. If you want to speak, of course, you'll need to either be on Zoom or physically be there. And there are a lot of topics to discuss. The field is pretty much wide open, and citizens can bring up pretty much any topic that they want to bring up. Now, there are some general topics which I think the public always is going to want to cover. One of them, the perennial topic, is parking. And this is going to be especially interesting in the coming year. The downtown farmers market is over. They had the last market this past Friday, and so the question is, what's going to happen in the spring when they start up the market again? There's going to be a renovation of the depot area, including the parking lot where the farmers market is going to be held. So where are they going to move that? My personal suggestion was that they ought to move it to the end of Clark Street, where the viaduct that was demolished used to be, because it's a very big, wide street. It's right near downtown. It doesn't take away parking from the rest of downtown. And it's just a nice big area to do this sort of a thing, and it's also again, it's pretty close to downtown. It used to be a major thoroughfare. But they haven't said anything about this yet, or about parking in general, unfortunately. City Council really hasn't devoted much time to that discussion. They also haven't dealt with having permits for downtown residents to park, which is something that's long overdue, and I hope that discussion will come up at the meeting as well. Now, another hot topic, which we haven't heard much about, is the stormwater drainage proposals. There has been no output from the city about what changes they are considering making to the regime where they essentially tax you and then do big stormwater projects. The city has hired 2 new employees to run street sweepers. But they haven't been able to actually run the street sweepers because the 2 people that they hired did not have commercial driver's licenses. So they're training them to get commercial driver's licenses. I'm not sure what they're doing with their time on the job. But so far, even though there is now a new expense related to stormwater, I don't know of any major projects yet. I think it'd be appropriate for the public to ask. Right now, our honorable mayor, Sharon Cumby, is still calling the stormwater levy a fee rather than a tax, but the University of Wyoming is not. The University of Wyoming has announced, although we haven't seen the papers yet, that they are filing a suit against the city, claiming that the stormwater levy is in fact a property tax, and there's some good reason to believe that, and that they're exempt from it, and also that the city has ignored the law and failed to put the question of what the tax should be and how stormwater drainage should be financed to the voters. This is sure to come up as a topic at the Fifth Tuesday meeting because we really need to know what's going on, and we need to hear from the city attorney, who hasn't said anything publicly yet about the legality of moving ahead with the original plan. This is sure to be a hot topic, and I'd be interested in seeing the public come and speak up about this, and also what the responses from the city, from city council, from city staff, and from the city attorney are going to be.
Looking at the actions of council in 2025, I had hoped for more parking attention. I had hoped for greater leadership with respect to surface water management. And studies continue to get employed time after time. And surveys and focus group, one of the most recent ones is the Laramie Forge program, that survey looking for input from the community. Those reports are coming and being available, but not reviewable. You know, the compilation of the information not openly available to the public without a FOIA request. That's one of the things that the Talk Shop's looking forward to digging into in the next 4 weeks, and hopefully not 4 weeks out, but sooner. But the depth of which the citizens have to continue to keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on and the actions that are being taken is very important. I mean, you just talked in the segment about the activities and where they might move different ones to. Well, we were told in the, I believe, August 5th session that the Depot Plaza configuration, that was in its earliest stages of conversation, not a $6 million plan that was starting next month. Isn't that interesting, Brett?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And the Forged Laramie project, as it's called, is also interesting. This is a periodic plan to revise the comprehensive plan for the city of Laramie. And the Forged Laramie group, which consists of city staff plus a few city council members, put out a survey. And I was a little disappointed in the survey because it didn't ask the questions that I felt were most relevant. I spent a lot of time writing in the other sections of the survey things which I thought were important, because it seemed to be directed, it seemed to be sort of leading the witness. It asked questions that seemed to lead to things that somebody who wrote the survey already wanted to do. And rather than being directed toward getting new input from citizens. So I was a little disappointed in that. The initial results of that survey have been posted to the city website, and they're available for review there. They're a little hard to find, but they did put out an email with links to it, and if you dig, you can find it. But so far, that's the only output we've had from that group. And again, I think the input, input on some issues which directly affect the public was sort of discouraged by the nature of the questions that were put there.
These type of activities are not uncommon. This guidance and this direction that happens leads the community to give a certain input. resulting in a certain summary. And it's a desired summary blatantly. Because the way that the surveys are opened up, I'd go back to a West Side Vision project that was February 21st and April 1st of 2024. Both of those were equally guided. They were the same type of guidance. And how do you want your neighborhood to look? Well, here's the pictures we've put out for you. Obviously, no particular problem with any of those, but not in the West Side neighborhood. You look out the windows after looking at 9 diagrammed architectural renderings, and not one of them matched that which was on the street side. Not one of them were going to look like or similar, except for having a roof, windows, and walls.
Yeah, well, that's another thing which is going to come up at the Fifth Tuesday meeting, or I hope will come up. There's an ordinance now pending from before council, and it's already going up for third reading with no changes to it. And that is original ordinance number 2110. And it makes significant changes to the zoning code in Laramie. And some of the changes are a bit controversial. Several of the provisions in it actually relate to parking. One of them says that a developer of an apartment complex, or pretty much any building, but it mainly affects apartment complexes because it's multifamily, it can have less vehicle parking if they put in facilities for bicycle parking. Now, that, if you think about it, at first that sounds like a good thing. Well, we're encouraging bicycle parking. But if you think about it, it really is counterproductive. Because if you go and take your bike, you need a place to put your car when you're not driving it. So it doesn't solve a problem. In fact, it creates a congestion problem because you have less parking for the cars that people aren't using. It would make much more sense to relax some other requirement. For example, a requirement to have landscaping. A lot of developers have complained that the landscaping requirements that the city imposes upon developers take away too much land. Why not go ahead and count the bicycle parking against landscaping rather than counting it against vehicle parking? Because parking is an important resource, and we need to keep it. Another provision in ordinance number 2110 says that if you have an accessory dwelling unit of, say, you built a cottage that you can rent on your property, you don't have to provide any parking for it. Well, that's a problem too, because that impacts parking in the area. People will have to park somewhere. They'll probably have to park out on the street. That causes more congestion. It interferes with street cleaning. And just in general, you're not giving these people a necessary resource again. And so the question is, should we not require some sort of parking for these accessory dwelling units? Again, this is a negative impact on parking. It seems as if the city planning staff that proposed this seems to be in favor of only things that remove parking rather than increase it, and this is another example. The ordinance also requires ADA parking for all multifamily development, including something like a duplex. It used to be that if you built a duplex, maybe you'd live in part of it, maybe your in-laws or another family member lived in part of it. You were exempt from having to provide a complete ADA parking space and and everything involving that. And what this ordinance proposes to do is take that away and insists that you have ADA parking even for that little duplex. Now, of course, one might say that, hey, eventually you're probably going to get older. You might need the ADA parking space. But again, for heaven's sake, we don't want to make housing more expensive right now. Housing is incredibly expensive right now and difficult to build on account of labor shortages. We don't want to make it harder yet. So again, is there another requirement that we can balance this against, rather than just insist, or is there a way we can waive this for a very small development so that we can make sure that we're not raising the cost of housing or, again, impacting on-street parking because we can't have as many off-street spaces. So these are things which the public should comment about and should definitely do so this week because, well, the ordinance is already coming up to third reading, and you'll have more time if you comment about this at the fifth Tuesday, because they will give speakers usually about 5 minutes rather than just the 3, and there'll be an opportunity for some discussion. So I think that these are important things to talk about.
It also is really important, I think, when you listen to your neighbors and fellow community members, you gather some of the ideas that come out from one another. And you might not entirely agree with one aspect, but it might trigger a thought for you in your personal perspective that you could integrate into perhaps a written follow-up statement to all council. You can submit those to council@cityoflaramie.org, and the message can get to every one of the counselors. As you said, Brett, the ward system is really not representative of council action. No initiative has been brought singularly from any one ward. They are all acting as at-large representatives, all elected, all duly elected, but they're acting as a group versus any individual area's representation. And especially in West Laramie, I've heard conversation about streets, curb and gutter, drainage, and the lack of attention to West Side projects that would bring them up to the standards of much of the rest of Laramie. And that's just one example.
Yes. And the other thing which is interesting, I think, is that even the council members who are elected to represent a particular ward have interests in other wards. Just to cite one example, our Ward 3 council member, Matt Lockhart, who has the Human Being franchise, he lives in and supposedly represents Ward 3, but he's opening a brand new location in West Laramie right now, so he has a big interest in what's going on there. There are similar multiple interests for every council member. And so again, our ward system really isn't working. We really need to talk to everyone. Again, this is another good reason why we should have a fifth Tuesday with all of the members present. And by the way, going back to Ordinance 2110 for a minute, there are some other things in that ordinance that affect every ward and are really important to discuss. One of the other provisions in that ordinance allows you to have residences in business zones. So if you have an area that's zoned B1 or even commercial, you can have a residence there. Now, that's actually a good thing about the ordinance because we have so many residences that are zoned business. And council a few years ago created this hack, you might say, or a kludge, where they had a residence over business overlay, where you could put this sort of overlay zone over your existing zone, and then you were allowed to do residence in a business area. That was really a kludge because, there's nothing wrong with having residences in a business area in the first place. So one good thing that Ordinance 2110 would do is say you can have a business there and you don't need this residence over business zone. But there's a problem. The ordinance doesn't get rid of the residence over business zone. So now you have two conflicting ways, and the requirements of each are different for having residences in a business area. And I don't know, maybe this is just sloppy drafting, or maybe they just didn't think of it, but they didn't put in a provision to repeal the residence over business zone. This is something which needs to be resolved before, if the ordinance is going to go through. They need to say, okay, this is what we're going to do about residences in business areas and have one consistent way of doing them. And then finally, there is probably the most contentious thing, and this also involves neighborhoods, and this also involves, preferences, the residents' preferences and zoning. Ordinance 2110 changes one little letter in one table that could have a huge impact. What it does is it allows mobile home parks as a use by right in the R3 zone. This includes West Laramie. This includes the Tree area. Any place which is zoned R3, and it is the largest zone in our city, it covers most of the residential area in our city, could have a mobile home park built right next to a single family residence. Now, R3 stands for residential up to 3 families. But in reality, that zone contains a lot of single family homes. And if you have a vacant lot, or heaven forbid, a building that's been destroyed by fire or something else next to you, if this ordinance passes the way it is, you could suddenly have a mobile home park built next to you. And, this is a big concern because it doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhoods, and it would cause a lot of congestion. We've been talking about parking again. It would cause a lot of problems with parking. Mobile home parks aren't appropriate in any place in the R3 zone, but this would allow it as a, quote, use by right, which means by default you can go ahead and do it. I am actually surprised that residents haven't come forward and been outraged by this, but maybe they haven't noticed because it's literally changing a single letter in a single table in the huge volume of city ordinances in the Uniform Development Code. This is something which should come up at the session because it seems to me that there should at least be a conditional use. There should at least be a requirement for for approval from the neighborhood before you put a mobile home park next to a single family home.
I might also point out that in last week's city council session, President from University of Wyoming, President Seidel, LCCC's President Schaefer, and WyoTech's campus president, all three spoke at the city council meeting in the work session, and not one of 9 city council members brought forth the conversation about utilization of Orr Hall, Downey Hall, or McIntyre Hall to relieve the housing crisis in Laramie. Given the housing crisis, that seems unbelievable to me that there wouldn't be that conversation. Instead, it was a pat your back, niceties, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, those kind of things were glossed over and not handled so directly. That's most concerning to me when we don't take every opportunity to make sure that people have homes in our community.
Yeah, well, what surprised me about that session was how few questions were asked of the speakers. There really was not a single question for Ed Seidel, and there was only one sort of a question for LCCC. It seems to me that there should have been a lot more discussion of town versus gown relations, especially with 15th Street now. Okay, not being closed off entirely, but being impeded by the new roundabouts and campus generally walling itself off from the
fortress
rest of the city.
The fortress grows.
Yeah, and with UW essentially becoming a fortress, and this is another area where there should have been at least some comment from council, but there really wasn't at this last work session. It was kind of disappointing.
You had an opportunity to check out North Hall upon the tour that was done. What was your impression of the new Residence Life facility on campus, formerly at the footprint of Weil Hall on the University of Wyoming campus?
Oh, well, my impressions were twofold. I looked at the dining hall, and I looked at the seating area, of which there seemed to be too little, and the buffet area, which was luxurious, and had tremendous, room for more food than could feed the people who would sit in the seating area. And I thought, wow, boy, the emphasis really seemed to be on, again, having the greatest variety of food rather than having the greatest usable space for people to sit. I did comment to my tour guide that I wondered where the candles were that floated in the air. And that was well, okay. The tour guides got it because they were all familiar with Harry Potter. Some of my fellow tourists didn't get that, but it really did. It really did seem. It almost seemed like Hogwarts Castle, the tall looming building, and and the way it was set up, and as a dormitory. One other thing that I noticed was that the ratio of bathrooms, which all were very elaborate and had showers in them, to the number of student rooms seemed to be a little bit low. And I'm concerned that the students may be lining up for use of the bathrooms, especially as a result of the showers being integrated with them. Someone takes a shower, they take a long time. They're going to take a long time before they get out of there. I'm not sure that the architects considered that and provided enough facilities for people, but we'll see. It's certainly this is designed. The new North Hall was designed to compete with off-campus facilities like the Point and the Social. And we'll see how well the students really like them.
The legacy halls, as they're being referred to, being Crane, Hill, Orr, White, McIntyre, and Downey Hall, each have their own character. But essentially, Orr Hall has been offline with more than 350 available beds to house. That's nearly the Albany County campus. If that were to be offered to LCCC students or to WyoTech students, imagine the relief of pressure on housing demand for supply, rather, in the rest of the community of Laramie. You might have some people, I don't want any homeless in our community, but if we can create relief and we can provide roofs over people's home, if we can provide relief to people looking for housing for a specific purpose, just like University of Wyoming students. These properties were built in the 1960s under Housing and Urban Development monies, and they are in existence for the public good. I'd hate to see them not cared for with ongoing maintenance, so that down the road, 5, 10, 15 years of vacancy, they can be demolished and wasted.
Yes. Well, I have no idea what the legalities or logistics are. I don't know if in terms of the university providing housing to other entities in that location. I don't know if they're allowed to. I don't know I don't know how all that would work, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah, I can't either. It's just an idea, but when the conversations go without being had, or the questions not posed, to me it's a missed opportunity for consensus to be built in our community overall, and further dividing you talk about walls going around the University of Wyoming. Essentially, these are walls in communication. They're called gaps, and if the gap is big enough, essentially you don't need any brick or mortar. You have a wide enough gap in communication to where these topics never even get brought up. Brett Glass, I appreciate you with your summary, this week's agenda preview, and other items that as we move forward in this morning's program.
Yep. Okay. There are 2 more items I have on my personal list for the 5th Tuesday. One item is the financing of the rec center. Right now, the rec center is seriously in the red. They're doing some renovations painfully. Not everybody thinks that they're doing enough renovations to it. One of the topics which should come up at the Fifth Tuesday is what's being done to encourage people to go, how how the fees are going to be set, what happens to the rec center going forward. It's a wonderful facility, but so far it's not earning its keep, and we need to figure out what to do about that. The second thing, the last thing on my list, on this, my remaining list, is streets. This fall, the city of Laramie did a very controversial thing. They accepted a lowball bid for chip sealing of various streets around town, and it let them do more streets. But the bid was so much lower than from any other contractor that people wondered what kind of a job the contractor was going to do. And as they were starting, at least, I noticed some problems with their not covering areas very well, of gravel being all over the place. There should be public comment and feedback on how good a job they ultimately did and whether we should do this sort of thing in the future. I think the public should chime in and make their feelings known about the quality of the work, about what they should do in the future regarding streets, because streets are one of the number one. When I was campaigning for a seat on city council, it was probably number one or number two in terms of in terms of the complaints that people had about city government. So hopefully we'll hear about that at the Fifth Tuesday meeting.
I want to encourage the public to be mindful of the city staff's preparation and preparing for city council meetings. I have two examples where the presentations lacked key components, key expertise. One such presentation involved the Depot Plaza area and the reconfiguration, but an arborist was not present to answer questions regarding very valuable trees and landscaping that we require developers to pay dearly for and invest very important dollars towards. We left the arborist home. We didn't have the arborist present to speak to the questions as conceivable. It seemed most reasonable that they would have had that. Another very recent omission is in the planning department, planning commission meetings, not to have an engineer present who could speak to the issues of the planning commission's consideration on important issues in front of them. It almost seems strategic in that it supports the rubber stamp model of anticipated acceptance of whatever city staff puts forth. And that's not the commitment to transparency that was made by our 2025 group as a whole. Their goals included transparency as one of their most important things. I don't find that that's good use of anyone's time by not having one representative expert present for key discussions. And I would just alert the city and listeners to pay attention, be mindful of some of these things. I don't know that it was intentional, but repeating the same error starts to become suspect to me.
Yeah, well, good point. We should always have people who are knowledgeable on hand, and people who and non-managers, people who are who don't necessarily have a vested interest in the outcome, but are just interested in making things work. I think that always helps. If you get management involved, then suddenly there are other things they're concerned about, allocating resources within their departments, about staffing, things like that. They may not do what's best for the city. They may do what's best for them in the internal organization. So yeah, by all means, let's get the people with boots on the ground into these discussions.
Brett, any awareness of the special purpose excise tax work that was done with county, Rock River Town and Laramie in about 3 weeks ago. Any update for our listeners?
Oh yeah, the proportions have been settled. The county and the city, within a few percent, are getting about the same share of the taxes, and the Rock River is getting enough to do their projects. The city has put out a list of projects, and I don't know if that's going to be tweaked any. One thing I thought was encouraging was that they were talking about reducing any stormwater levy that they do impose upon us by having some of the special purpose tax money go toward it. But I don't know if it's enough. They originally proposed $7 million. I thought that in order to reduce the impact, they needed at least 10. So, but that can actually still be tweaked before it goes on the ballot. So let's see
Well,
what
and it's
happens
possible that split of 7,000 was 4,000 to the SPET, specific purpose tax, and 3,000 from general fund, as I understand. So they might maybe they add 3,000 or 3 million rather from general fund to that. Perhaps that's place where that might be going. Rental registration. Any change in that? Perhaps we can go into in an upcoming show. But there's a lot of revenue being generated, and we still need to examine what benefit is that to the community other than expanded government.
Well, there hasn't been much talk about that. There was a discussion, there has been a discussion of having an incentive program, a carrot rather than just a stick, to encourage landlords to do better things with their property. It's unclear where that's going. There hasn't been an ordinance brought forth, or even any sort of a program, official detailed program brought forth for public view. So it's unclear exactly what's going to happen there.
This morning's show brought to you in part by the Scare Crew, the American Legion at 417 West 4th Street. I'm sorry, on West Ivinson. 417 Ivinson Avenue, putting forth plans and preparation for an October 24th, 25th, 30th, 31st, and 1st haunted house. And that will be most fun, done by local area volunteers, and that's group, the Scare Crew. We'll have more details coming up in the coming weeks, as well as we visit with Timmy Trujillo and other organizers of Scare Crew 2025. Brett, any final thought?
No, I've pretty much covered everything on my list, but I'd like to encourage people to participate tomorrow night. Again, 6 p.m., it's going to be at the Rec Center. And again, if you're not able to attend in person, at least consider attending by Zoom or consider watching on YouTube. To attend by Zoom, the way you do it is you go to the city website, cityoflaramie.org/agenda center. You look up the agenda for the meeting, which simply says that they're going to be having a Fifth Tuesday meeting, but there is a Zoom link in the agenda, which you can click on, and if you have Zoom on your computer or your cell phone, you just click on that link, and boom, you're in the meeting, and you can raise your hand and participate if you want to. So that's all for this week. I hope to see a lot of people there. I hope we fill the room, and there's a lot of good discussion.
The Talk Shop preview here this morning brought to you in part by Range Community Insurance, the Benton Rusty, Chano's Village, and the Chocolate Cellar in historic downtown Laramie. Have a great day, everybody.